Hello, I'd like to pick up a few of your comments. The first is about Paula Vennells, and somebody who points out that Paula Vennells was going to become, was in the running to become Bishop of London, and that the last Bishop of London then went on to become Archbishop of Canterbury. Well, Paula Vennells is no longer practicing as a priest, but of course, under the principles in Christianity, in the Catholic version and the Anglican version of Christianity, people have been ordained, continue to be a priest, whether they are defrocked or not practicing. You are a priest forever, a priest like Melchizedek of old, and all that sort of stuff. So maybe the Anglican Church managed to see that this person was not everything that they set out to be, but that's the nature of the organization, that it's that it's composed of people who are fallible. That is, unless people plan to be the Pope, and even there, the infallibility of the papacy is a concept which is extraordinarily protected, and I think the pontiffs have only claimed to be infallible about 4 or 5 times. The second point is about Putin, and so many comments about Mr. Putin and about Andrew Bridgen. And I thought I ought to put the record. I thought I ought to make the record clear that people are saying, "Oh, you've changed your mind." I've not changed my mind at all. I still think Putin is dead. And why? Because the concept of Putin, this sort of icon that Putin became, preceded his death and has continued since his death. I believe he's in a fridge, and there was a clear statement of his death on the 26th of October in 2023 from General SVR and from others. There have been stories about illnesses before that time as well, and doppelgangers who seem to be routine and very good, but the mortal Putin is gone. And it seems credible to me that the Putin that we see today is not the same Putin that was seen in 2016. Absolutely not. And as for, there are plenty of rumors about Putin. They started in 2005, I think, or 2006, with claims that he'd had a stroke, which may or may not have been true. I think mostly that was based on his rather funny walk, which has been explained by his getting used to a holster under his arm, rather like James Bond. But James Bond never hobbled around in that extraordinary fashion. I analysed his walk once. I thought I would animate him. And so, sort of incrementally, I analysed this slight hobble, and I found it fascinating. But there are stories, for example, in 2014 or something. No, but before that, there was a story that Putin was gay. This is put forward by a man called Belkovsky, who survived. He didn't tumble out of a top floor window. He survived. And the idea was that he was latently homosexual and much preferred his dogs, Connie and Buffy, rather than, well, actually the suggestion was that Alina Kabaeva, the gymnast, was something of a beard. And in this allegation, unproven, he's not alone. For example, the old Pope Paul VI, I'm being very pontifical here, was supposed to be gay. There was an article put out by a man called Franco Bellegrande, and Paul VI was so appalled he demanded a day of prayer, which became actually a day of faint ridicule. But you do wonder whether or not Putin's triggering of Article 6.21 in 2013, which then ramps up the anti-gay legislation. You do think of Hamlet having a conversation with his mother while the player king and queen are getting on with their business, and his mother turns to him and says, "Methinks the lady doth protest too much." So that's Putin's death. Are we on the wrong side of history regarding the Ukraine? Well, I think absolutely not. We must resist aggression. We must resist regression as well. We must resist aggression. And the invasion of Ukraine in 2021 and the earlier invasion of Crimea in 2014 was aggressive. It was also in both cases preceded by an undercover operation by the Wagner Brigade and other paramilitary Russian-backed operatives going into the region and stirring up discontent. Prigozhin, propaganda, and then accusing Ukraine of the same atrocities that the Russian paramilitaries were indulging in. This is an old Kremlin trick. The only soldier, or the only soldiers that I know wearing Nazi regalia were Russian. Even if the Azov battalion was as badly behaved as it is alleged, the Russians were there first. And you can't proclaim war on an entire country because of the bad behavior of one small group, however bad. And I think from that point of view, and Israel should listen to this, from that point of view, we should look at what happened in Northern Ireland, reprehensible though it was. It was appalling, but Britain did not drop bombs on Northern Ireland. Britain sent in police, sent in soldiers, but it didn't drop bombs. There wasn't the mass execution of civilians for the bad behavior of the few. And that is important, because Putin has done exactly here what Israel has done in Gaza, if you want that analogy. And it's wrong. It's wrong. Collective punishment is wrong. And it's not an excuse for an invasion. Point 3. Have we done enough to foment and encourage peace? And here I think the answer is absolutely not. And I have every belief that Western powers have fiddled in the area in Ukraine, both before the invasion of Crimea and since. But Zelensky stood on a ticket to wipe out corruption. And although he's not been successful, he's made an effort in that direction. He's gone a long way towards doing so, and Russia, by contrast, has overseen in that period a surge in corruption and repressive laws. I know, I was there at the beginning of that process. Until 2019, I was in Russia, and I met many of the bigwigs of the regime. I don't intend to toady to trolls or to a failed MP like Andrew Bridgen, however much I admire his passion and his commitment. I don't share his views, but I admire his personality. Do I think he's right to urge caution? Absolutely. Do I think he's right to say that we are in a sort of de facto war, that we are at war? Absolutely not. Not at all. This is fallacious, and it's rabble-rousing, and it's wrong. It's a shameful behaviour from an MP who is supposed to be a leader and a representative. Should we be doing things differently? Yes, wholeheartedly. We should never have gone down the sanctions route. Never, never, never. Even if Zelensky requested it. Zelensky requested our help. He wasn't there to dictate how we helped. And that is the error. Zelensky was not a statesman of repute. He didn't have a lot of experience. Why should he dictate how the rest of the world helped him? It was enough that he appealed for help. However much we help Ukraine to arm itself against aggression, we are not at war with Russia, and we should have had, and we should have, a door open to forge conversations, negotiations in lieu of negotiations, if you like, as ever. We should be an ear, even a diplomatic ear, however cautiously, to voices raised on both sides. That's the only way, really, that we can be of genuine help, because the arms trade will do its thing. And yes, we can help with money. Yes, we can help with introductions. Yes, we can help with weapons. But so far, we have stipulated that these are defensive. They're not enough to ensure the success of Ukraine, which is a shame. More defensive weapons would have been better. In the same way as we could defend Israel against attack from Hamas and from Iran, more weapons to defend would be better. But instead, when it comes to Russia, the collective West wants to plug its fingers in its ears and pretend that it cannot see or hear or speak to the Russian regime, and this is madness. If we are not at war, and we are not, whatever Andrew Bridgen says, then we should be fostering some form of cautious friendship. Turkey manages this, and we should too. Instead, we poodle around behind the United States. Foolishness. We shouldn't have our eyes closed, but we should have our ears open, and we should have our arms outstretched to help.